Hello, I'm Reverend Kenny Callahan, the pastor of Metropolitan Community Church of Richmond. The sacred text for this coming Sunday service is taken from John's story, the 15th chapter, verses 1 to 8. In the middle of this passage, Jesus says, "Live on in me as I do in you." And that's the line that stood out to me as I considered this passage. And to be quite honest, without it, much of what Jesus says feels more like a threat. Live on in me or else be pruned, wither, and thrown into the fire and die. All voiced, of course, as threat to bully people into staying in line and being faithful at all cost. But Jesus doesn't say it that. Jesus says, live on in me as I do in you. And that completely changes everything. The other statements about pruning and withering and all the rest are not threats of intimidation, but rather statements of fact, descriptions of what happens when we do not live in Jesus, when we are separated from the love and acceptance of the divine, or when we run away, or when we hide, or think that we can do life completely on our own and decide to walk away from God, or try to prove that we have no need for any kind of spiritual connection. The truth is, branches don't do all that well when separated from the vine. At best, they become like cut flowers. For a while, they have a burst of color and bloom, but in time, they fade and they wither. The imagery here is that Jesus is the vine, Creator God, the vine grower, and we are the branches. It's easy to read this sacred text as one of judgment and threat, but I think the intention of this passage is instead one of promise. There are countless examples of persons who feel cut down, maybe even mowed down by life and by circumstances. And John offers us an opportunity to reframe our experiences by reminding us that Jesus is with us, living on in us, holding on to us, loving us, and will never ever let go of us. Which means that what sometimes can feel like a death cut is really only a pruning, and that growth is ahead. New life will come. Jesus said that there's always opportunity to experience and feel the divine in our lives. And there's no doubt that when we're hurting, this is hard to believe because so much of life simply tears at us with no evidence that it is for some greater good, or that there would be a more fruitful and blessed future. But in the midst of all of our uncertainty, all of our pain and fear and stress, Jesus still invites us, actually not just invites, but promises us that we are not abandoned, but rather that Jesus will cling to us like a vine clings to a tree, so that we will survive whatever is going on in life. And not just survive, but thrive among all of our challenges and all of our difficulties. When my life becomes overwhelmingly painful, or when I feel beaten up by the challenges that I face, here's what I hold on to, and I invite you to hold on to this as well. If Jesus had only said, live on in me or else, that would be a different matter. But that's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, live on in me as I do in you. This is more than good advice, more than an invitation. This is a promise that no matter what happens to us, Jesus will be with us. That no matter what happens to us, Jesus will hold on to us. That no matter what happens, God in Jesus will bring all things for our good, and all things will come to an end.